Hi, everyone. Before we get into today's episode, I just want to warn you that there's a lot of swearing throughout this interview. So if you have kids around, you'll want to listen at a later time. Now on with the show. Hello, I'm Christopher Lopez, and this is the StarCraft Observer. The show centered around the real-time strategy game StarCraft and its real stories from the community. We talk to artists, streamers, players, creators about their first encounter with the game and how it's changed their lives. Hi everyone, it's finally great to be back. Sorry to keep you all waiting. Family vacation, spending time with my parents, all while moving between places, was and still is pretty hectic. The good news is, we're finally settled into our new place. Oh, and another important achievement. As you can all probably hear, the new podcast room is set up. It may not sound like much, but there's a lot that happened among all that. And one way I managed to cope with all the stress and madness of it all was embracing more of my creator side. And by that, I mean taking to the social media platforms that the StarCraft Observer is on, like Instagram, TikTok, or Twitter, and creating these short videos where it's mainly myself imagining what it would be like in various StarCraft scenarios, such as what it would be like on my first day of Reaper training where I pretend to jump off a cliff, or finally making it to Grandmasters, but then the TVA, the Time Variance Authority, showing up in my room to erase the whole event, or pretending to be an SCV forgetting to wall off while slowly zooming out to see a large swarm of Zerg about to invade. And I gotta tell you, it's been a wonderful experience because, as I mentioned before, it's helped me cope with a lot of the personal things that have been going on in my life. It's unlocked the side of me that I've somehow tucked away forever, and allowing my imagination to take the wheel while being a bit goofy. But before all that, before this podcast, before TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, before the StarCraft Observer, there was one thing that helped me deal with the everyday stresses of a 9-to-5 work life. That thing, watching a StarCraft stream via Twitch. I don't know what it is about watching a stream, but it somehow just changes up my entire attitude. And looking back on it, it's probably because the majority of the StarCraft streamers tend to be very relatable. And also, I had zero time to play, which I still don't. But I was able to enjoy the experience of watching someone play my favorite game. Out of all the streamers that I found most relatable, vocal, and shared their gripes a lot during their stream, was this person.
Oh, come on, that's not fair. They were gonna nerf it. They just quit before they did. They left us with a great gift to remind them, or to remind everybody why they should play their new shit. Dude, what if that was the fucking plan? Bro, that's it! I figured it out. I cracked the code. They literally buffed the Void Ray, so everyone would get sick of it, so they released their fucking game, and everyone plays that instead, because no one wants to play fucking Legacy of the Void Ray anymore. Dude, genius! I subscribe to this theory. I figured it out. I actually cracked the code. I cracked the Konami code. Like, we figured it out. We understand exactly what happened to SC2 now. It's actually, no, I'm like right there. I'm with you, chat.
And that's my guest today, UpATreeZelda, or also known as Sal, who to me is one very relatable Terran player. One who really engages with their chat and is very vocal about the way they play the game. And for this episode, I'll be referring to UpATreeZelda as Sal. So let's get into the interview and take it from his early years of gaming.
So we used to do, back when it was like, I guess we would have been playing Halo 1 or 2. Like, I had an Xbox and the guys across the street had an Xbox. So I was very fortunate because like I lived in a court, like in a cul-de-sac, and three households were really, really good friends. So I would, and two of us had an Xbox. So I would get my friends to bring their TV, and this is back in the days of CRT. So like, you just see like I remember seeing like their parents like they're in the lawn just like watching their CRT TV just like get shuffled across the street. And I remember this day we had like 12 people, and it was like we were doing 4v4 like Halo, and it was like each TV was like back to back, and like the shit, like sometimes I complain about like some of my shit that I got, like, oh, my mouse is off by just a little bit or whatever. And then I remember that we stacked like fucking 4 people on top of each other so that they could look at half a pixel and try and nail a headshot. That was a great day though. I remember that. We did a lot of shit like that. We would constantly play games. I remember like back when they got like, even I think it was like maybe 5 years after D2 would have come out, like the guys across the street were very, very, very into Diablo 2, and we'd like bring our PCs over and we just like run around and do shit. But they were like super into it, way more into it than I ever was. But we played like we did a lot of shit like that. We played so many games. But we played a lot of like during the summer you can't play ice hockey, so we played roller hockey. So we basically all had like skates and shit, and then we take up the court and we just like shoot the shit. I mean, we played like all day, man. Like we'd wake up, it would be like 11 a.m. We played till it was dark. Like that was summers. Like I lost summers. I can't lost them, but like that was like the whole fucking thing. Cause this is like right before you like the internet was around really that you had like or was useful in any way. Like that's just what you were doing.
And what was your first encounter with like a console? Do you remember?
I have some memories of NES games, but the memory that stands out to me is the my dad took me over to someone's house and I was hanging out with their daughter, but then I was like enamored with the fact that like with like Link running around and shit, and I remembered the gold cartridge, and I just remembered the 2D like the overhead. And then I'm gonna just fast forward because the story is actually pretty funny. I remember being a little bit older, and I was with my uncle, and I was looking for this game because I'd only ever seen it, right? And I knew it was called like Zelda or whatever. And we were at like a garage sale, and we found like Zelda 2. And I don't know if you played Zelda 2, but it's a side scroller.
What? Wait.
Yeah, and it's a horrible fucking video game. Horrible video game, bro. It is not right. In fact, as a child, I knew something was fucking wrong. Okay? I remember playing it and being like, I actually gave the game another chance. Like, if it was now and I played this game, I'd be like, you and all of the games in your franchise are dead to me. But I was like, no, this is a mistake. Something wrong has happened here.
And it wouldn't be until Sal's college years where he would encounter StarCraft for the very first time. When did you first encounter StarCraft?
Okay, so I played before the 2010 release of SC2. I played like half the Brood War campaign, and then that was it. And then when StarCraft 2 launched, me and a bunch of friends like who had never played RTS like installed Brood War on a bunch of laptops, and we played it for like 3 days straight. And we had like a riot, like just playing like 1v1 maps, and just people were like cannon rushing each other, and it was awful. It was like looking back on it, it felt crazy, but I know now that it must have been just the worst. It's like two children beating each other with like wiffle bats
Right, right.
compared to like fencing.
And do you remember when you first picked up
Yeah, so StarCraft 2 happened because one of my buddies bought it. Jason Legree, he stops by and chat all the time. He bought it and like brought it over and he was playing it on his laptop, I think. And I was like, dude, I can't keep playing this Brood War shit. And look at the graphics on that. So then I sold like 3 games to buy Wings of Liberty. I think I sold 2 games I can't remember, but I know I sold Brawl because I didn't play Brawl anymore. So I sold like a bunch of games, like bought Brood War. So I bought StarCraft 2, and then played I played quite a lot of StarCraft Wings of Liberty. Like I played too much. And at first it was like, 3 games a day or whatever, and it just slowly picked up pace.
and what was it about it that just like pulled you in?
It was hard. Like it was hard. It was harder than anything else that I had ever undertaken. Like as far as like, one particular task, like I had a lot of things I think that were hard in the long term, but nothing like this, man. StarCraft 2 is nutty. Like when you think about what goes into just one game of StarCraft, how many years you have to play to be good. Some people are freaks of nature, but to get good at this game, like you have to invest so much time. And then just one game, like you're basically applying almost everything you learned in that time just in that one game. Right? It's a very difficult thing.
With Sal finally on board the StarCraft 2 train, he would begin to take this game very, very serious, putting countless hours into getting better at the game. In fact, it was so serious to him that he would play at one of his favorite studying spots during his college years. In an interview with Joey, a nice username, I was watching that video and there was an incident that you had in a coffee shop when you were first playing StarCraft.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't know which particular incident, because I used to do a lot of work there, but like the first thing I ever did, and like my first ladder games were like played in a coffee shop.
Why?
And I like took my, I don't fucking know, man. Like, I was such an edgy kid. I don't know why I did that. I can't tell you, like, I don't know. But you know what? Maybe I do know the answer to your question. When I was studying, like in my first year, I spent so much time studying in a coffee, like in coffee shops, or like in like libraries, or like just not at home, that I was more comfortable in those environments than I was at home. Like home was a foreign place, right? Like it wasn't until I was done school that I had a home. Like I genuinely never spent any time at my own place. I was always like, that was strictly for sleeping. Like I think this might be common amongst a lot of students, but I think a lot of people spend more time than I ever did. Like I was always at a lab, at a coffee shop, or at a library. And I think it might have just been a comfort thing. Like that's where I went to do work. And to me, I wanted to play StarCraft 2, and I wanted to take it seriously, even from my first shitty ass ladder games. Like, so I did it where I do work. And I lost all of them because, of course, I was terrible, so, but I think that was the mentality that probably led me to do it. Like, if I had to try and walk through what angsty young, like 18-year-old me would have been doing, that is definitely what I probably like walked through in my mind.
And was there a particular coffee shop that you went to constantly, or?
It was the Second Cup, and it was downtown Burlington, and I remember it like it was yesterday. And it was so fucking awkward. Like, for other people, like me, I didn't care. But for other people, they were like looking at me with my big, and it wasn't like you gotta get away with it now. I have like a nice 75% keyboard. It's nice and small. No, I had a fucking Black Widow Ultimate, man. Like this thing was like, I could beat you over the head with it inadvertently. Like I could accidentally just turn around while holding it and like knock you out, because that's just, it was an instrument.
Yeah.
It wasn't a keyboard.
Did it have blue switches too, or?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah. No shame, bro. Fucking no shame. Zero shame.
I'm all just going to the coffee shop. I'm trying to enjoy my coffee, and you just hear tick, 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 tick.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I had no shame.
Wow. So it was just your laptop, keyboard, and a mouse.
Yeah.
I can totally understand that, because I mean it's your element, it's your spot that gives you that comfort.
Yeah, once I walk you through it, it makes sense.
Yeah.
But like, if I just told you where that was, you'd be like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Oh man.
But it even tells you the situation that I had to use a laptop because I did not own a desktop at the time. Like, that's how mobile I was. Like, I bought a desktop to play this fucking game. Like, it did not the other way around. I did not have a desktop and install StarCraft. No, like I was no desktop. Right? Like that was where, yeah, since the very beginning, I've been pouring my life into it. Like everything I got.
When it comes to StarCraft, Sal doesn't mess around, even until this day. So while still in college and pouring in countless hours into StarCraft 2, Sal eventually would cross paths with the game, but on an entirely different medium. He recalls two instances, one during his Brood War days before taking things seriously, and the second was when he was knee-deep into StarCraft 2 and taking this game to coffee shops, as previously mentioned. When did you first hear about streaming?
Okay, actually, there are two situations, because I remember them both. And I don't know why I held on to the first one. But I walked by some kid in the fucking library. And of course, they're library computers. This is probably why it's still in my brain. They're library computers, so they're like, trash cans. And back in the day, they were beyond trash can. Like they're like they're like the piece of tile a trash can has sat on for too long. It's like discolored. And I saw StarCraft, somehow the StarCraft was there on the screen, but he wasn't playing it because the thing is a trash can. It's a tile underneath. So I knew, because I had this is right after I had played a little bit of Brood War. So I knew that this was StarCraft because I could see it. I don't even think this is still StarCraft beta. I watched this guy for 2 seconds. I walk by and he's watching a show match or something between two players playing the beta. And I'm just I know he's not playing it. What the fuck? So then that was the first encounter I had. The second encounter was I was in a computer lab and a bunch of kids were watching Idra play. And then either Idra, I think it was Idra, but either Idra or Destiny. And then that was it. Then I went on a bender, finding all the different creators and stuff. Those two incidences were the very beginning.
And what was going on through your mind when you're watching these matches? What were you thinking? What was going on in your head?
I mean, I was just completely awestruck, I think, at the pace. In fact, it was so crazy. StarCraft seems almost formulaic to me now. I watch StarCraft 2 matches, and it's very hard to get excited about anything. Because, I mean, once you've played enough StarCraft or watched enough StarCraft, if I watch a PvZ, I find that interesting still. But watching any TVX matchup is oh yeah, that was good. Oh, that's great. Oh, that's good. Yeah, he should do this. And they look at that. Oh yeah, that's well done, right? Because even if I'm nowhere near as good, I understand everything that they're attempting to pull off. Even if I can't do it myself, because I've just seen so much of it now, and also attempted so many of these things. And even if I could pull off 1 in 100, I've done it before. So it's kind of took the mystery out. But back then, it was so overwhelming. I wasn't even trying to pick up on the intricacies or build orders or anything. I was just enamored by the action and the pace of the game alone. I wasn't even looking at how to play better myself.
After witnessing this game happen live on a stream for the very first time and being awestruck, this moment would make a long-lasting impact on Sal. A moment that would set him on a path to streaming, and one that will unexpectedly have him meet his heroes. More of that after the break. Hi everyone. If you're enjoying this podcast so far and would like to keep up with the StarCraft Observer, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, and Twitter, where not only will you get updates about the latest episodes, but you also get to see some beautiful StarCraft-related fan art. Once again, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, and Twitter.
Hey, listen!
Do you enjoy The Legend of Zelda as much as today's guest? Enjoy traveling across the lands of Hyrule listening to some nice beats? Well, I got some great news for you. Today's guest has recently released an album titled Soul Latte, in which he teamed up with a fellow StarCraft community member, Morn, to bring you the latest hits straight out of Hyrule. What started off as just simple Twitch alerts soon evolved into something greater. Taking their love and inspiration, this album elevates the Legend of Zelda series, taking it to greater heights. The album is packed with tracks inspired by the many different lands. You can find their album on Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, Deezer, and DistroKid. More info can be found in today's podcast show notes. Go listen and enjoy. Welcome back. We left off with Sal seeing StarCraft being streamed for the very first time. He recalls seeing a group of kids huddled around a computer witnessing Idra playing a match against some opponent. Little did Sal know, seeing a stream for the very first time would set him on his journey to becoming a full-time streamer. Surprisingly, he didn't jump into streaming blind. He went in with a plan. So seeing, this whole thing with StarCraft happening on a stream, I guess what I'm trying to say is you see all this going on and you see that it's on a stream. Is that when you start you're just okay, I think I can play this game and stream it too?
Oh, dude, my first inclination to stream came because I realized that I wanted to play StarCraft 2 full time, and I was not good enough to do it, just through gameplay. And but I needed to convince people, because this is back when you couldn't make shit. like off of playing unless you were the absolute best, and no one took it seriously. Like that is a thing that has changed drastically since I started this stuff. Back then, telling people what you were trying to do was a laughable, like just the funniest thing. Like people just thought you were crazy. They didn't even think that you were stupid. They thought you were insane. Like to undertake something like that, and that it wasn't even possible, no matter how hard you tried.
Mm-hmm. And that's basically why, like, you had this vision in your head of like,
yeah. So I was like, I needed to find a way to make money at it, so that people would take it seriously enough to let me do it. And so I took up streaming first on my older channel, which is Under a Tree, just to do that, like just to try and make ends meet kind of deal. Obviously, I knew that I'd have to grow that. I wasn't that naive, and I knew that it would be difficult, and I didn't have any consistency. Like it was a very selfish thing. And I think that's one of the reasons that I just stopped doing it, because I didn't want to be good at what I was doing. I wanted what being good got me, right? It would buy me the ability to do what I actually wanted to do. So then when I did the charity marathon, the very first one, I got to look into what it was like to be a streamer. Because those times the stream was so small, like you get like 5 viewers, 4 viewers, 3 viewers, whatever, that you didn't get a good idea. You never got a good idea of I had no idea what that meant. Like, what was it to be a streamer? But when I did the charity marathon, one Reddit thread, which has never been duplicated ever, by the way, it was a complete luck-based farce off the first one. We had like 600 viewers just because of a Reddit thread. And I got a good experience. I got a good look at what it was like to talk to a chat and like have that many people watching. And it was an experience. I still like, I barely remember what happened during it because I hadn't slept in like 50 hours. But I remember like that it was one of the most enjoyable things I'd ever done. And so it kind of brought me to this point where I was like, I could do that. Like I enjoyed that. And then I took up Ocarina of Time speedrunning, and it was actually exactly the same thing. Like even when it was just 10 viewers, 12 viewers or something, or 6 viewers again, because it like you get that bump from people who come from the marathon, and then it goes down, and then you get it again when you have another marathon, and then but that chat interaction was something that once I started doing it, like it was too enjoyable to, like I wanted to stream for its own merits. I didn't want to do it for anything else.
So up until this point, Sal was streaming here and there during college, and once he did that charity stream he mentioned earlier, he got an early glimpse as to what things would look like at having a successful stream, and what it really meant to stream for a big audience. This would soon lead him to the next phase of his life, and what he's been truly wanting, to become a full-time streamer. Now, a decision like that isn't easy because so much is at stake, right? Especially if you have a family, paying rent, working, etc., because being a full-time streamer literally means to stream 4 to 8 hours a day and somehow make it sustainable for you to get by in life. But somehow, Sal managed to make that happen and found success in growing a stream. Having a carefully laid out plan and his options with minimal risk, the time finally came to make the leap and go full-time. Were you scared at all when you decided that? Like, were you nervous?
When I decided that, there were no stakes. So no. Had I decided that and it was like, I'm going to quit everything else I'm doing and do this, then it would have been a very different story. But at the time, I was still a master's student. And I knew I had until my master's degree was done. Like, and to at least, because everything was kind of mapped out. As long as I could get both, I could stream consistently and finish my degree in that amount of time. I essentially had a free experimental time. Right? So I wasn't concerned because there was no risk. I suppose you could argue I could have been building like other projects to get a job. But I don't know. I wasn't too concerned about that. If I had to take 2-3 months off to build like some side projects and stuff after, I wasn't really too concerned.
So you weren't nervous. You knew that there's nothing at stake.
Yeah, there wasn't really anything at stake yet.
Oh, okay. Yet. Okay.
So I knew that there would be some stakes, And I knew that eventually if I was going to take it seriously, because like I don't want to say that because it seems like I didn't recognize the possible severity of what was going on. It was not the case. I 100% knew that like if I was going to take this seriously, I knew exactly what I need to make. And I'm actually super fortunate. At every phase until like maybe last year or 2 years ago. Actually, no, until even last year. So like every phase in my career since I've become a streamer, my financial needs have literally just barely been met. So even up to like last year where we rented out a place with four of us, and then I was making enough to pay a quarter of the rent. And then in the 2 years that we were together, I grew a lot. And when two of them decided to leave, I was making just enough to cover all of it. So like every phase, like I've everything that I've needed, I had like I managed to just barely get that, and then everything extra was just poured back into the stream.
Was streaming able to support you financially at that time? Like,
Yeah, like I said, just barely, like just barely. Like I finished, I graduated, and I had just barely cracked the criteria for partnership, and just barely like literally within a month of one another. I'd been working at partnership for like I'd been within partnership range for like 5 or 6 months prior
wow.
to that.
And what's the criteria for that?
At the time, it was different. At the time, it was still the wild, wild west. Like there was no affiliate, there was no guarantees. Every case was handled individually.
And so back then it was still kind of like young. So would you say it was relatively easier back then?
Way harder. The thing is, dude, is that there were no subs for you.
Right.
So I had like roughly like 80 to 100 viewers for like 2 years, and I had Patreon supporters, and I had like and tips. That was my income, even though like I had like 20 Patreon subscribers or patron supporters, and then as soon as I got partnered, I had like 100 and something subs.
Whoa.
And this is before gifted subs. So you can imagine that in that short span, like what was 20? Like it was literally like that whole time I could have had subscribers, right? But instead, Twitch decided like, so with affiliate now, it's easier to do because even in that range where you're stuck affiliate, you can still make a living if you have like a very supportive chat.
Listening back to all that, I couldn't help but get the feeling that Sal was truly destined to stream, as cheesy as that sounds, because it seemed every step along the way he was cracking some sort of real life code that was putting him just right on that level where he needed to be and putting him on a track to success and allowing his stream to grow. Eventually, with the growth of his stream, Sal would begin to attract some attention. So much so that would land him in a room with his heroes and individuals that we all grew up watching live at StarCraft tournaments, at an event that took place in beautiful San Francisco, California. How did you come to the SC20 event? Like, how did you?
I don't know. They invited me, and I don't know, because I was like one of the few up and coming streamers who had like just made partner. Not like I don't think it'd been like a year, but like my stream was growing, and it was like one of the few streams that like kind of was growing at that kind of rate back then. But there were others they could have invited. I don't know why they chose me. Maybe because like there was like a Blizzard employee that was like watching my stream all the time, but like I literally couldn't tell you if that was really the reason. I got an email from Machine Bryce because he was like doing the Twitch stuff, and yeah, I don't know, and I probably never will. That's one of the things I don't want to know, that it was like, yeah, I'd rather not know. I just grateful for what it was.
So what did that message say? Like, hey, like we want to invite you to this event in California?
Yeah, they invited me, and I almost couldn't fucking believe it.
Wow. Do they fly you out to California? Like,
yeah, dude, they did the whole fucking thing, man. Like,
talk me through it.
Bro, they flew me out to California. They paid me for my time. And yeah, like I was I was genuinely nervous for that because I'd never been on someone else's camera in my entire life. Like on that level ever. Like I'd had I'd had like streams with other people, but it's always either me setting it up or I had some hand in it. But this was like an event where I was on someone else's setup, like and there was no script, and it was like the biggest players, and I was like, there's In Control was there, and he's terrifying to be on the couch with because like you're just bound to get roasted, and like and I swear all the time, and like this is a Blizzard event, it's like I don't know what can I say, and there's all this shit like going on. I did not sleep going into it. I couldn't. So like I went in the first day like in a complete trance. The second day was way better because I had slept like a solid 12 hours. So I was like way more rested, but the first day I was just in an absolute fucking daze.
So you're in California, you're in this hotel, and you can't sleep. Like, what's going through your mind? Like, what are you thinking?
Fuck. Like, that's just...
Oh,
dude, it was actually so fucking bad. Yeah, I was just... My mind was just like, no, not like this. Not like this.
Did you call up your wife or anything at the time? Like,
I mean, yeah, but there's no... I forgot melatonin. Everything was closed.
oh no.
That's it. Like, I was just so fucked.
And just to give you an idea of how nervous and tired Sal was, I'm going to play back 2 clips. The first that I'm going to play back to you is a clip from one of his recent streams. Here's Sal talking about pumpkin spice lattes.
True, like, and I think most dudes feel that. Like, there's a lot of things like, you know, dudes will avoid because they don't want to be judged. But if you see a dude with a pumpkin spice latte, you know he doesn't give a fuck about anything. He doesn't give a shit. And who's gonna notice looking at the cup? It's one of those things, man. People ask you, know, oh, what'd you get? I don't lie, man. I looked them dead in the face. Pumpkin spice. I don't fucking care at all. It tastes too good. It tastes too good. I don't give a fucking shit. Judge me all you want. I don't fucking care. Oh, it's overpriced? Don't care. Tastes amazing. I don't get them all the time, but when I do, oh, it's fantastic. Dude, I have two speeds. Black coffee, pumpkin spice. Absolutely. I'm with you, man. I drink black coffee literally 99.99999% of days. Every morning.
Right away, you can hear it in his voice. Perfectly natural, energetic, witty, and funny. Now, I'll show you a clip taken from that day where he sits down with Day 9, Artosis, and In Control.
I'm gonna go grab.
Yeah, get that guy. Get that guy over here. We gotta talk to him. UpATreeZelda, come on.
Nick, take your 3-eyed shirt, all right?
It's a good shirt. It's very...
When you sit, it's 2, but when you stand up, it becomes 3.
It's actually 3 belly buttons.
Up a tree.
UpATreeZelda.
UpATreeZelda.
So picked last to MVP.
Yeah, you killed everybody by yourself, basically. What's it like to carry a team that picked you last and made fun of you?
My back hurts.
Oh, I
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Understandable.
Dude, UpATreeZelda, introduce yourself to the camera on the right.
That
Everyone's
one?
watching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's up? I'm up a tree.
Where'd your name come from?
Okay, so this is a command in my chat because I get this a lot.
Yeah.
I was under a tree because I was an edgy teen and I liked philosophy and stuff. So, you know.
Literally, you're called Under a Tree.
Yeah, I was under a tree. But then remember when you didn't have clan tags, so I had to cut some letters, and I didn't want to spell under wrong, so I decided to go with up. And when I started streaming, I started because I was doing like charity marathons. So I started with Zelda. We did like as many games as we could the first time, so I just appended that, and then
Oh, yeah.
yeah, so I took up glitchless speedruns for a while, and then when I couldn't stand Ocarina of Time anymore, I came back to the only game I could play for a long time without getting sick of it.
StarCraft, man.
Man, he just never gets old.
He's like Minesweeper. But then after that,
Okay, so what's your history with StarCraft been like? Were you big?
He sounds totally different, especially after carrying his team to victory in a 4v4 against LivyB, TLO, Huck, and Noni. Let's not forget about the fact that he was running on fumes when it came to sleep, and also that it was a live Blizzard event where you had to watch what you say. Overall, the games he played were awesome, which I would highly recommend everyone to watch. I'll link it in the podcast show notes. It all starts around the 3-hour and 50-minute mark. With all that said, in rewatching the whole StarCraft 20th anniversary event, there was one major thing that I noticed about Sal while he was there. Everyone was pretty casual and wearing a t-shirt and jeans. Sal was practically wearing a suit and looking like he was about to go on a date. So I asked, and I was actually very surprised by his response. Oh, one of the things I noticed too is that you were dressed really nice.
Yeah. I went and bought clothes. Are you kidding me? Holy shit! You think I'm gonna go on that show and not leave a good impression? Are you kidding?
No,
You
because
crazy?
everybody else was so casual wearing t-shirts, and you were wearing like a nice button-up shirt. And I think that's
Yeah,
why.
because I didn't understand. Like, I don't know if I didn't. Actually, no, I did understand. I knew because I'd seen the one that they'd done, the holiday bash when remaster came out. I think the remaster was first. I think the SE20 event was after that. I wasn't fucking around, man. Hell no. No way, man. Like, you can't. I'm not. You know what it was like that when I respect an event, that's what I wear. Like I wear clothes that I feel reflect my respect for the event. And now that's not to take away from what everyone else wore, because I remember Artosis wore like an N64 shirt. That's like super ballin', you know. But like, and for those guys, that is almost, it's like another day in the office kind of deal. Whereas for me, I had a respect for, like, not just for the event itself, but what that event meant for me. Right, so I dressed for the part.
Yeah, no, I mean, dude, you're looking fresh, man. Like, you stood out. Like, I was just like, who is this guy? Like, I've never seen him before. And yeah, it was. I mean, you're surrounded by so many like legends and up and coming people at the time. It's like
Yeah, man.
Like, just watching it, my body can't take it.
I couldn't even, if you had told me like 3 years before that I'd be there, I would never even have believed you. Like, I would have thought you were just stupid. How could you say something so asinine? It'll never happen.
When it comes to StarCraft, even from his early college days, it's a serious passion for Sal. But you really have to wonder, with him being a full-time streamer, making StarCraft-related content, and this being a 9-to-5 for him, a dream if you ask me, how does he balance family life between all this? You start streaming, you start doing StarCraft, you take it on full-time, you do SE20, you do Achievement Hunt, you're doing all these things, right? And where is your family and your wife? Like, how do you balance all this out?
I mean, I spend the vast majority of my time outside of all of this with my with my wife or my family. Honestly, like, I think that's the only way, because like, yeah, I just pour everything that isn't that into this. But I'm like one of those guys. Yeah, I definitely am aware of the fact I'm a workaholic. So like, it's important. I think it's very important for people who are like workaholics to recognize that they're workaholics. Because if you spend too much time in denial, you'll find yourself utterly alone. So I think that's important to realize, and just realize that, you know, if you feel like you could spend your whole life working on a particular thing, like, it's important not to do that, or you'll end up just alone. So, you know, I mean, at first my parents weren't on board. My parents have always been more on the side of, like, you know, you pursue your passions kind of deal. And they never really gave me any shit for it because, like I said, I've always been just barely financially successful enough till probably like the last year and a half to like just make it by. And obviously that says something, that it's like more of a real thing. Yeah. And then my wife has never, ever told me to relax. Like, so she's just being alongside for the whole thing. I think that stems from the fact that her dad was a chemistry major, and he wanted to pursue chem, but he and his wife conceived prior to him finding a stable chem job. So he took a sales job, and he always regretted not like finding a chemistry job after. So that was just a thing that lasted forever, like a classic. So I wish I'd pursued my dreams kind of deal. So I think that Cassie's never wanted me to experience the same thing. And so this is like one of those things where I set my goals, I barely achieved them, and so I managed to keep going. Like,
and when you first met Cassie, like, were you already streaming at this time?
No, I met her, dude. We've been together for 10 years.
Wow, congratulations!
She was here through the whole thing.
Whoa.
She knew me before StarCraft.
Wow, so she's seen you flourish. She's been there since the beginning.
She's seen the whole thing. Yeah, start to finish, man. She bought me my very first piece of gaming gear. She bought me a SteelSeries hardpad.
When she bought you that, was it a surprise?
Mate, I don't remember.
No
I
worries.
might have alluded to it, but like with the particular model and stuff like that, yeah.
But she's always been super supportive of you. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, I don't think it's ever really been I don't think it's ever really been like the concept has been trying.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I think she's always saying like I have a reasonable approach to it. Again, it's an unreasonable thing, but my approach to doing it has been reasonable, and because of that, it's been like kind of painless because there's always been like, all right, so if it doesn't work out, then I'll do this instead kind of deal. And because of that, once everything is mapped out, like when you're flying blind, it becomes easier to hold the grudge. But when things are mapped out, it's difficult because everyone's in on the whole plan from the start, or you got to adjust the plan.
That's true. That's very true. Yeah. Like for example, like me and my wife, we have a kid together. We've been together for like 8 years, and
Right.
this whole podcast idea, me and her talked about it. We started a plan. She actually started planning things out for me. I was just like, oh shit, like she knows I really care about this thing, and like she started helping me out doing that, putting a plan together, getting a calendar, like buying all these things for me. And I think you're totally right about that. Like if somebody knows the plan and stuff has to be adjusted along the way, then yeah, it's okay and they're on board rather than flying blind. That's totally true, man. That hits home.
Right. It's really about honesty because like even if you leave things out because you're afraid they're not going to work out, there's dishonesty there. Like if you are completely open, like to the best of your ability, and you're honest about the situation, like there's no resentment. How can there be? Like if everyone was on board, even if it doesn't work out, I mean, what are you gonna do? Like what are you gonna blame? Nothing. But as soon as you start trying to be like, you hide pieces of the plan because you're not sure if they're gonna work out. Like you start trying to make guarantees and stuff. It's not. That's how things fall apart. Like yeah, we'll be here and this time. Don't worry about it. That kind of thing. And no sort of putting away the fact that it could fail.
And like I said during that interview, what Sal just said really hits home. I truly believe in that last bit of advice that he gives. When there's a plan with full transparency, honesty, and everyone is on board with that plan, it creates a less painful journey with zero room for resentment because everyone is in on it. And as with all plans, they can be adjusted along the way when things are not heading in the right direction. Another thing that he touched on was honesty. And that's the major thing that I love about Sal's stream. He's just a genuine, honest person who wears their heart on their sleeve. I believe that's the key to how he was able to create a thriving community for his viewers. And as we all know, community is what helps elevate your content. It's the heart and soul of all that you're creating. And it's the biggest driving force to all which you're building, because it's community that's going to be sharing and loving your content at the end of the day. This is something too that Sal has successfully built along the way. Because as you can already guess, I'm a part of his community. And my gosh, it's one of the best things to be a part of. And it made me wonder, with such a huge community now, does the streamer still get nervous? Before you start your stream, do you ever get like nervous or anxious?
Nah, man. No, I think for me, most days, like stream is the best part of my day. And not because my days are bad, but because I love my stream. I've had shit days where I wake up and I'm like not in a good mood, and the first line of chat is somebody saying something so fucking stupid and hilarious, and I'm just so happy like to have this job. And it completely fixes my day. I've had that many times. I've also had it where somebody says something so obnoxious that it ruins my day. That's hard though, because like I find people being dumb hilarious. So like you need to strike this perfect balance that's really hard to strike on like offensive and like annoying and not like no good way to make fun of something. Like it's really tough. It's tough.
Yeah, when I'm on your stream, that's what I notice is like there's all this like camaraderie going on, and sometimes chat's making fun of you, and you're going back and forth, and it's like this balancing act that's going on, and that's what I found really unique. Like, how do you say like stable? Like, how do you define that line?
Generally, like, oh, man. So this is a thing that I picked up on like really early. People like to say like offensive shit, even if they're not offensive people. Like, because the mind just does that sometimes. Like, you'll say something and you might even regret saying it immediately after you say it, either typed or not typed. Or not regret it, but you're just going for the shock value or whatever. But most people who do that kind of stuff, they're not bad people. They're just people trying to, like, get a response out of you and, maybe just spar with you mentally a little bit. Sometimes they're terrible people. Like, I won't I won't like go out on a limb and defend everybody who's ever said anything stupid, because that's not right. But there are tons of terrible people who always seem to do the right thing, right? But just fuck you over behind your back. When it comes to like chat and stuff, usually if somebody says something I think is like really bad, unless it's like so flagrant it's clear that you're just asking to be banned. Like if it's borderline, I usually try to speak to that person like on a more personal level and try and like bait out the reality of what they were trying to say. See if they were trying to be offensive for fun, or if they were trying to be, or if this is like what they actually believe, right? Like, and that actually tends to work, because people who are just trying to be funny, they almost immediately are like, oh yeah, I was just dicking around. And people who are actually serious, because it's the internet, I've this is consistent. Like I'd say like 80 to 90% of the time, maybe even like 95% of the time, I think I can count on my one hand like the number of times that I've pursued somebody who has been like, oh no, I'm just kidding, only to then do something bad again later. Like people on the internet will double down on their stupid ass ideas because there's no accountability. So they won't even bother they're not like trying to infiltrate you or anything. They'll just attack like full bore, like no holds barred. They don't care. So sometimes you get a person who just goes like, yeah, no, like this isn't what I meant at all. I was just kidding. And then they'll say something stupid again like 10 minutes later, and then again like 10 minutes after that, even though you've warned them. You get a few of those, but usually what you get is somebody who's just, being dumb for fun, and then you call them out on it, or you ask them about why they said that, and then they go like they explain their train of thought, and then it's not so bad. Very rarely do you get somebody who does the first, and most likely when someone's a bit of a douche, they'll just be like, no, this is correct belief. You're an idiot. You guys are all fucking stupid. You're all a bunch of Nazis. I'm out. And then they get banned.
Right. Oh my gosh.
Because they can't help themselves. Like they have a point to prove and a soapbox to stand on, so they will. And so I casually reach over with a second mouse, click on their name, and never see them again.
But it takes a lot for them to get banned.
Yeah, I would say that the luxury of, not luxury, but one of the nice things about being a streamer who talks to the chat so much is that the number of people you have to ban by accident is low, right? Like the number of people you have to ban, like people come to really understand what the line is when you have a lot of dialogue with people, I think. Like it's hard to understand the line in a chat where the streamer never says anything because you don't know what they think about anything. So it's hard to get a feel for your environment. Like, you know how they say read the room? Well, if the streamer never says anything, then what? You don't know the room. The rules are posted, but they're just copy pasted from everywhere else, right? And you can get away with some things in some chats and other things in other chats. So yeah, I mean, having a dialogue with the streamer all the time.
Day in and day out, Sal deals with a lot of this, and it's incredible how he manages to keep his cool when a few trolls come in, especially after they've been beaten by him after a game of StarCraft, or just someone randomly waltzing in trying to cause him trouble. Outside of that, though, what's wonderful to me is how he's changed and touched the lives of his viewers through his stream, always bringing out the best in all of us, and majority of the time, the silly side of us, and making his chat feel like kids again. Sometimes, though, even inspiring some to develop a few bots, earning us the most timeouts and bans. But honestly, it's probably the bad puns that get this particular person banned and timed out in Sal's stream. Yes, I'm referring to the one and only professional StarCraft 2 commentator, Ravi Fear Dragon Parikh, who will be closing out today's episode. How many bans do you have at this point?
He actually told me this a few weeks ago. I think it was something like 11 or 12, and then I think timeouts it just says 99 plus or something now.
Oh my God.
I think that we concluded that I had the most timeouts and bans on his channel.
How has it been for you being a part of his community?
I think being a part of Sal's community has changed me. I think I've become a much worse troll than I used to be. I used to have a lighthearted trollness to me. I think now, ever since being a part of Sal's community, I feel like it's okay to directly put down streamers that I'm watching and tell them how bad they are, but in a very loving way. Only to friends. there's a line you don't cross, obviously.
Yeah, and I'm glad you touched on that because I'm starting to notice that in myself too. So anytime there's a moment where I control him, like I'll just capitalize on that and like jump in it. And the fun part is that he just rolls with it. Like he doesn't, he just makes it fun, and he knows that when he's on his stream, we're all gonna have a good time and just make fun of each other and stuff. Be it him or be it the chat. You also wrote a bot for his.
Which one?
Yeah. Okay. How many do you have?
I must have written at least like 5 or 6 at this point or something. The ones that come to mind are I have one that's auto copy pastas any message that's over 200 characters long. So basically someone will write this thoughtful question or something and just immediately my bot will auto copy paste it or something. I wrote another one that used voice recognition because Sal swears a lot. So I got voice recognition on his stream, and anytime he swore, I would just say, "Wow, streamer, you really shouldn't swear or watch your language." He banned me for a week for that. I think the most recent one is that I have a bot now that reads the live stream to see when he's supply block, and then I let him know he's supply blocked after he's already probably with like stream delay and everything finished catching up on the supply block.
What was the motivation behind writing those bots for you?
Honestly, I think this is something going back to what you said about Sal and the way he handles a lot of it. I think that it's so lighthearted, and I think it's a very fun place to be where for the most part, people don't take things super personally or seriously. So that's, I think, something I really appreciate about Sal. I could never tell him this to his face, my God. But he is a really, really wonderful human being. And I think he really does take a lot of playful banter and beatings and stuff like a true champ. And I think he encourages it. And I think he enjoys it too and everything. To him, that's also like a way he, in my mind, shows like affection to the people that he likes and stuff as well. So I think part of it just came from that inner desire to show my affection for Sal by making his life a little bit more miserable.
That's how we do it in chat, man.
There you go, man. I mean, are you a true Twitch chatter unless you hold the largest number of bans and timeouts on Sal's channel?
Thank you, everyone, for listening to this month's episode. And you can find Sal's stream in the podcast show notes, along with the album he produced with Morn. A big thank you to Fear Dragon for closing out this month's episode and being a taco and tacoing with me about our favorite streamer. Gosh, dude, I don't know how you do it with these bad puns. Also, listeners, if you do decide to tune into Sal's stream, tell him the StarCraft Observer says hi. And one more thing, go easy on him. Be sure to subscribe and let friends and family know about the StarCraft Observer. Editing, music, and production was done by your host, Christopher Lopez. Outro music by the talented Televangel. Head on over to their Bandcamp or YouTube. You can also find Televangel on Spotify. More details about Televangel in the podcast show notes. Until next time, friends, thank you very much.